Mrs. Katseli, Ms. Exarchou, Minister Madas, Mr. Papaderakis, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Europe and Germany in particular is debating on migration, on refugees, and on budgetary issues. These are top of the political agenda back home. And still, we are meeting here to discuss sustainability. You might ask, does it really matter? My answer is yes, it does. For quite some time, the word sustainability seemed to be like a sleeping beauty, while the world discussed globalization, competitiveness. Is there a change now? And my answer is yes, there is. And I would like to express my deep respect and congratulations to the QNF and the Greek National Bank for this quite long journey that you together made and the step that you are doing right now. I think that is right in time, up to the point, and it lives the change that I would like to talk about, and it lives the relevance of talking and debating sustainable development that I would like to talk about. Sustainability is not a German invention. Although we had some deep roots in this, but it's not invented in Germany. It's a universe principle. And coming from the United Nations General Assembly last year in September, the United Nations and all nations in the world decided to have global sustainable development goals. And this is a new idea, because they are universe. That's not the development goals only for the political South, but now we are all in this together. We are all countries in development. And sustainability is not just about the environment. Environment is a very, very important pillar. But sustainability is about social inclusion, about economic competitiveness, and the environment and the planetary boundaries. The new point here is that when we talk about sustainability, we are leaving the world of either or. The either or mantra was jobs versus tree huggers. It was smoking chimneys versus clean up the environment. It was ecology versus economy. It was growth versus justice. This is the old mantra, and I admit it's still in the head of lots of people. But we are up to something new, and the new would be more to the point. It would mean to have a sustained growth in a sustainable economy, with full respect on the limits that are put on us in respect to planetary boundaries. But yes, we have also to admit that in Europe the macroeconomic house is not in order. And short-term thinking is hurting the social inclusion. And it is hurting the future, but it's also hurting the past, the legacy of where we come from. The question is, where does change come from? Change towards this environmental and social and economic transition. And the answer is change comes from the people. It comes from ideas. It comes from people that take ideas and make them into a devoted, dedicated policies. And if you look around, this kind of change agents you find in particular in the private sector and in a civil society throughout Europe, I would say. It's business is bringing together the business case for sustainable development and its stakeholders. And regulation will keep very important. It will remain very important. But at the end of the day, we will not just regulate ourselves into a sustainable development. There's more to it. And one thing that is more to it is a sense of a collaborative approach and the sense of bringing society and the business case together. That is obviously about trust. Trust works via transparency. Trust works via steps being taken. And this is what we, again, all have in common, that we should and need to develop this kind of trust into competences and capacities for the future. The German Council for Sustainable Development is a body of 15 eminent persons. They come from the private sector, from big-sized companies, also from medium-sized companies. They come from the trade union, from the churches, from environmental, non-governmental organizations, and there are a couple of elder politicians on the council. The council gets its mandate from the federal chancellor. It's renewed every 3 years. So as a body, we kind of sustained already 5 governments in 4 different colors, which is, even for the German environment, very uncommon. We are giving advice to the federal government. We're talking about environment, about demography, about the economy, about fiscal stability, about budgetary issues. And right after the financial crisis in 2008-9, we began debating on a new contract thing, a new idea on linking society and the business. In an elaborate stakeholder process in 2010 and 2011, we developed, together with stakeholders from the private sector and the civil society, we developed the Sustainable Development Code. We build it from the concern of the companies. They concern themselves with sustainable development. And the idea was in the room that a systematic sustainable development management in a company would lower capital costs. And nowadays we have some proof, there's an evidence that really this is the case. We know lots of examples of companies in Germany that are doing a sustainable development performance in terms of products, in terms of production, in terms of the whole supply chain, when you deal with textile, for instance. From the experience of the German Sustainable Development Award that is given every year now, in the 9th year now, 2 companies and 2 cities, by the way, we know like some 5,000 companies devoted to the case of sustainable development in Germany. We are currently relaunching, the government is currently relaunching the German strategy for a sustainable development, equivalent to Sustainable Greece 2020. In the light of the universe global sustainable development goals, we are now expanding the target towards 2030. And every year we have a big public assembly, a sustainable development summit, as we call it, in Berlin, and we have a crowd of more than 1,000 people coming voluntarily to this meeting. We have the Chancellor addressing this crowd every year. So there's evidence that sustainable development is something that people care about, and something that we all should put our emphasis on in terms of reaching a kind of future capacity, or capacity for the future. In Germany, the companies and organizations apply the German Sustainable Development Code voluntarily. There are large and small companies, public and private enterprises, companies with and companies without an existing reporting scheme. There are non-reporters now entering the sphere of reporting on sustainability issues. It is, what we did in Germany is applicable worldwide. It does not depend on Germany's registered location or companies registered in Germany. And it has only 20 criteria. That means it's robust. It's easy to access. And it begins with one central and essential question, and a question being, will I be as a CEO or as a leader in business, will I be in a position to sustain my business case over the next 10 or 20 years? If not, what will I have to do? In the light of the environmental change, in the light of societal change, in the light of innovation and regulation and regulatory competition, will I have my business case going on in the next 10 or 20 years? That is the proof of the kind of materiality that we call it. And we ask this as the first and essential question. It starts, so to say, very simple, and then it gets you, it draws you into a more detailed revision of what you're doing in your business. We also have sector-specific amendments to the code, and I'm very happy that together with me here today is the representative of the food industry and the representative of the saving banks, both and amongst the first sectors that took the code as a sector-specific tool to address their sector-specific companies. They're here together with Yvonne Zwick, who is in charge of the code in my office and doing a wonderful job. Thank you very much at that point. We have some backing in Germany. The Chancellor herself and the Chief of Staff of the Chancellery, they are both behind the code. Chief of Staff invited all state-owned companies in Germany that exist in Germany and told them, well, what about you in the code? And 10% of those companies now apply for the code and have it onboarded, but only 10%. That is only to give you an idea that it's not exactly an uphill battle, but still it's a battle. It's not the case that sustainability is a no-brainer. It is a brainer. And you need some tools to brain it. And the code is one of those. So the good message here is that the GIZ and the German Development Bank, the KfW, they are both devoted to the code. So any of you who are doing business with any of those, it's more easy to come into business with KfW and the GIZ once you declare your compliance to the code. We also, with the code, have build a kind of a bridge towards the world of global reporting initiative and the G4 reporting scheme and the reporting scheme of the or criteria of the European Federation of Financial Analysts Society, EFAS, as already mentioned. We know that the code can do more than just report on what had been done in the past. By the way, reporting seems to be some report on the past. But the German, the sustainability code is also on the future. As I told you, the first question is, can I continue my business case over the next years? So it's future bound, it's not past bound. That is why you can use the code as a basis of evaluation in B2B, business to business relations, in portfolio management, for corporate bonds. You might even use it for human resources, because young people tend to give more priority to companies that are doing something reasonable, and they can prove it. We have evidence from studies that the flow of capital can be steered towards sustainable business models more easily when you have this kind of reporting tool in place. The code now is being translated into English, French, Russian language, Greek, of course, and will be translated into Hebrew language. This is all on request. We are not prescriptive. We are not the do-gooders that want to flood all the place. We are reacting on request. And that is what we did with you, Chrysola. You came to us and asked us for help, and then we developed a collaboration. I'm very happy that the QualityNet Foundation is the first partner, official partner, to join us in this venue. The Greek SD code is the first national adaptation of the sustainability code. And it is innovative, and this is of utmost importance here. The idea to have different levels of maturity is your idea, and it's special to the Greek code. I think this is one of the most important innovations here. We don't, as in Germany, we don't have this level of maturity. I think we don't need it. But the point is right, that national conditions, national circumstances might require that kind of level of maturity. And then we are open to it. And we discussed this. Chrysola was in Berlin and a couple of times, actually, and we discussed this in the council and with the government and said, well, yes, that's a way to proceed. Different from us, but it's a way to proceed, and still it's the code. And these kinds of specific approaches is what we need. We do not need a silver bullet flying around, a blueprint, but we do need a national adaptation scheme. Let me finish with a more general thought. I can look forward to a Europe that applies the European Sustainability Code. And we're doing lots of things towards this goal. It will work with your help in your country and in the region, because what you are doing is convincing people. I mean, we could also go to the city in London, but I doubt that this would convince people. But if a national adaptation comes right from the ground in a country that hits the bottom line, to say it very bluntly, and has to make a U-turn, then this builds credibility, of course. That is why we are committed to help whenever possible and needed. Coming from Germany, with all these debates on the European Union, I have to say personally a little bit tired of this EU bashing that we hear all the way. I mean, for 60 years now, at least my generation is living in a unified Europe, which means peace. and which means a basic level of understanding. I do not want to over-exaggerate this, but it's peace and it's understanding and it's collaboration throughout Europe. And we are living in a prosperity that my grandparents have never experienced and actually could never have dreamed of. And we now learn something new. We used to think about neighbors as those countries that we share a boundary with. And these days we learn that neighborhood is changing. There is a war in the Near East, and all of a sudden Syrian people, people from Syria, are neighbors to us. And we have to deal with this. And I think that is what our societies are learning now, big style. Not only about climate. Yes, we have to talk about climate. Not only about the common goods, water, the soil, food. We have to learn about people, the planet, prosperity, partnerships, and peace. These are the 5 big P's. And from that, I think the Sustainable Development Code is a generational project. It's a project of those who are devoted to the case of sustainable development, those who care about others and about others in other parts of the world, and those who start in their own backyard. That is why change comes from, at the end of the day, from ideas and from vision. The point is that this is a vision not beyond reason. That is a vision that can be combined with the next step, the Monday step, so to say. Not the vision for Sunday, it's the next step on Monday. That combined is the vision for sustainable development. And you need people that are dedicated, that are engaging others. And again, not beyond reason, what was a certain sense of reality. And that is why I can only express my respect and congratulation once again, because I think you combine visionary capacity with the next steps when you introduce the Greek Sustainability Code. Thank you very much.